welcome to the Rebel Ballerina Show, where we learn to live a kick-ass rebel life. I'm your host, Lisa Lurie, the Rebel Ballerina. There's no farting around in this show, just straight up fun. But if your ears are sensitive, go ahead and move along. If you want a truly kick-ass life, well, then here we go. Hello, and welcome to the Rebel Ballerina Show. I'm your host, Lisa Lurie, the Rebel Ballerina. Rebel, yes. Being a rebel is like, well, it's the best because it means freedom. Freedom. And we want freedom and lots of it in many, many different ways. But before I get into all of that, just a quick reminder about my ebook, From Almost Ending It All to Fun Hot Bitch Mom. Check it out. There might be some really pertinent information that you resonate with that you hadn't maybe thought of before, right? So check that out. And then also, it's in the link below. So check in the link below for it. And also, when I'm talking about stuff, please comment. Give me your feedback. I'd love to hear what you have to say about what I'm talking about because your voice matters. And so I'd love to hear it. I'd love to hear what you have to say. And also, if you wouldn't mind clicking on the like, share, and something. I keep forgetting. Oh, subscribe. Yes, you might have heard that whisper. That was my inside voice whispering out in public. So, like, subscribe, and share. Thank you. I do appreciate it if you would do that. So now talking about freedom and being a rebel and how that produces freedom. So the perils of being a fawn are pretty widespread. There's a whole gamut of stuff that takes over in our lives when we become fawns. And again, this is a trauma response pattern. It is something that was conditioned into us when we were just kids and we had no real choices. We had no power, no authority over our lives. So we couldn't say, this sucks, I'm out. You can't do that when you're a kid. Well, I mean, I suppose you can. That's called running away. But nevertheless, typically we don't do that. Right? So now that we're adults, that's when the real problems happen. That survival mechanism, that pattern actually did help us survive childhood, and that was successful. So in that case, it did its job, and it did it pretty well for all intents and purposes. But now, as an adult, that pattern is absolutely putting us in shackles. There are so many ways that it is absolutely diminishing at minimum, diminishing our very lives, and also creating havoc in other people's lives. For instance, I recently had a conversation with another single mom who has younger children. My kids are adults now, so I've lived through some stuff, but now I'm on this side where they are adults. But it's heartbreaking when I hear these stories, hers, and there are many others like it, with younger children stuck in custody battles. So here is where being a fawn ends up putting our children in shackles as well. My own children suffered greatly at the hands of their dad because he sent them away. And it was a pretty extreme situation the way he lied in court and got full, uh, what do you call it, custodial rights. Mine were revoked because he lied. And there was no investigation. There were no questions asked. He just said a lie, and the judge said, okay, they're yours to him. But it's not because my ex actually wanted to have them and to raise them and to spend time with them and to be that parent. No, he shipped them away. He shipped them right back to a very horrible situation. It was like a prison, a place for wayward teens, a behavior modification program, guised guised as a boarding school, which was an absolute joke right there. But nevertheless, conveniently, that would mean he would not have to pay child support. And also conveniently, because the tuition was so high, it very quickly evaporated all of our assets. There's a word for a situation like that: calculated. That was a calculated event. That was no mistake. How do I get rid of the kids so I can just move on with my new love and not have them in the way? How do I prevent having to pay child support because I don't want to have them in my situation because, again, in the way? But then how do I prevent paying child support because then that would mean they should be with their mom? But if I send them away to this horrible place, a boarding school, supposedly, that's really expensive, then I don't have to have them. I don't have to take care of them. I don't have to have any responsibility whatsoever. And I don't have to pay the child support. And I can absolutely diminish the assets so that ex wife doesn't get anything for that 20-year marriage. And it worked. That's exactly what he did. So it was a pretty extreme situation and extraordinarily traumatic for my kids. And they were indeed in shackles. This place was literally like a prison. Anyway, I will try to remain calm as I speak about this. Hearing the stories of others that are going through similar situations, maybe their kids aren't being sent to hell basically, for 2.5 years of vital time of life, right? That was my daughter. 2.5 years of vital teenage years, early teenage years. My son lost 10 and a half months, and then he conveniently aged out, thank God. So he came to live with me. And the funniest part about that, not that anything was funny, shall I say, the interesting thing about that was the whole lie that got my custodial rights revoked in the first place was that I was deemed and portrayed by my ex as dangerous. Oh, it's too dangerous to have the kids living with her. And yet, as soon as my son was 18, it was assumed he would just come and live with me. Now, did I get evaluated to see if I was dangerous still? Was I even evaluated at all? No. Again, it was just based off of a lie, and I had a whack job judge. And believe me, the system is fucked up. I will be just completely honest and blunt. Our judicial system, especially in the family law side, is fucked. And it's a crapshoot as to what kind of judge you're going to get. This first one, should never have been on the bench. He was already actually retired, but because of the backlog, they put him back on the bench was a huge mistake. And he got a lot of complaints. Very similar things as to what I was going through. Thankfully, the judge I had for trial was much more level headed, he was fair, he listened to both sides. So I feel like that was a much better a much better situation. But you just don't know. That's the problem. You don't know who you're going to be assigned to. So, and it took, I've been in the system for like 10 years. It's so screwy. So that was a real issue. But I was not evaluated. There was no like, whoa, whoa, wait, before we take custodial rights away, because that's a big deal. Before we do that, let's at least have her evaluated, right? I mean, was I a druggie? No. Was I an alcoholic? No. Did I beat them? No. I mean, there are plenty of parents who are like that at least at the minimum get evaluated when custodial rights are in question. Not me. So then, once my son ages out at 18, suddenly I'm just not that dangerous, I guess, cuz he came to live with me, no questions asked. My ex never said, "Hey, do you want to come live with me? Are you sure you want to move in with your mom?" I mean, there was nothing like that. It was assumed. It was known he was going to move into me. The caveat is, why, by golly, my son was now 18 and not eligible for child support. Imagine that. How convenient. Yes, I am making sarcasm with this because we all know darn well, again, calculated is a good word. So, in speaking with a lot of other women going through horrible circumstances, their kids are the ones who are being truly shackled and traumatized. I mean, we are too. Don't get me wrong. We are too. It was crushing for me to go through that time with my kids in a place that I knew was horrible. They did not belong there at all. They didn't deserve to be there at all. And the reason that they were there was something completely nefarious. So many other families going through the same thing. And I just had a conversation very recently with yet another single mom whose kids she's struggling to um, keep custody and maybe even assume full custody because of the things. And she's documenting all of it. Super smart, super smart. She's documenting every single conversation, email, text, whatever, and so that she can present her case to try to keep her kids and not lose her custody and actually assume full custody because the father and stepmom are very clearly not living up to what they should be doing and even bordering on child endangerment. This is really tough because it's one thing to get into a relationship and to recognize, ooh, this person is not a good person. But to have kids with them and then have to go through this huge game is horrifying. And the narcissists, they don't care. It's pretty obvious. And especially these folks who don't want to pay child support. They don't want the kids, but they also don't want to pay child support. They want their cake and eat it too. They want it both ways, whatever little phrase you want to use. I have some other words about stuff like that, but I'm trying to keep myself from using too many expletives. I think I already made my allotment for the day in talking about the court system. But that's because this is a pretty heavy and charged situation and topic when your kids are the ones being brutalized in some way, shape, or form and traumatized by their own parent because they're being completely selfish and unreasonable. And yet, that's what we're called. You're being selfish and unreasonable. And that's called gaslighting. So anything that a taker, exploiter, or manipulator calls you, make note of that, write it down, note the time and the date and the context in which they use that, and just see if possibly they actually divulged themselves to you, because that's the tactic. They try to blame you. He tried to blame me for exactly who they are. Be wise to that. Start notating it seriously in the context of whatever the situation is, the conversation, and then write down the time and the date so that you can go back and you can start collecting this stuff, because it's really important that you back up what you're saying. Although it worked just great for my ex to just come up with a complete lie with no substantiation whatsoever. However, I would not count on that for you. So be prepared to substantiate what you're talking about. The reason I bring this up is because we want freedom. That is a bunch of bullshit, having to have ourselves shackled and especially having our kids shackled and being hurt by this behavior. That is exactly why we must rebel. We have to rebel. We have to grow some freaking gonads, and in this case, antlers, because we're fawns, in keeping with that. Antlers to keep these pieces of things out of our space, right? That's how we protect ourselves. We have to. We have to rebel even if we already have kids. I mean, they're here. So now what? Do we just go along with what the ex wants so that, everything is peaceful? Because that's what I did for 20 freaking years. That didn't work out so well. And it got even worse. So are you afraid of the worse? Yeah, understandably so. Understandably so. But is it worth it? No, it's not. It's not worth continuing to be a fawn and to be at their mercy and their beck and call, and whatever it is that they want, we just agree with. Or we try to fight, but then we back off, or they threaten in some ways. We're like, okay, I'm sorry. Those days need to be done. They are done for me. They need to be done for you too. For your sake, yeah. But for your kids' sake, for sure. They need to see someone standing up to that kind of person. They need to see the rebellion. They need to see their mom rebel against a few things. The obvious, the person that you're dealing with. Yeah. Did I rebel to get out of my marriage? Oh, you betcha. I was rebelling against my ex and my marriage 100%. But what I was really rebelling against is this conditioning. I didn't even know it at the time, but that is exactly what I was doing. Thankfully, I was rebelling against this conditioning that was dictating my life, that was telling me, you have to be a certain way. You have to just obey. You have to just do what you're told. You have to people please. You have to exhaust yourself to make everybody else happy. And if you dare think of yourself, well, you're just a selfish bitch. That's what you'll hear, because that's what we're told. And we're told that even from being small kids, possibly even infancy. How dare you cry because you have a need? How many times do you see a parent with a crying baby? I mean, I know it's aggravating. I went through it too. And sometimes they just don't shut up. And it gets very wearing. Holy cow, if you have a child like my boyfriend, one of his daughters, she was born with medical issues and cried nonstop because she was in so much pain. I mean, that's just it's horrible. I cannot even imagine. I can't imagine because it's like your baby's in pain. And so you have compassion, but you can't handle hearing that crying anymore, right? Nerves get frazzled with that sound. We know that. But how many times do we bark at our kids because of that, right? We were barked at, weren't we? You're here to be seen, not heard. Shut up. I don't want to hear you. Stop making that noise. And all those kinds of things. I mean, granted, depending on the situation, sometimes it is necessary for kids not to make noise. However, there are better ways to go about it than just saying, stop it, right? Because that is the message that they're getting, being the same message that we got. And so it goes. So, how do we break this? How do we break this pattern? How do we break this chain? How do we help our own kids be able to parent in another way and not have to continue the same stupid life sucking pattern? Well, we have to do it ourselves. Starts with us moms becoming rebels, rebel fawns. Again, being a rebel fawn does not mean that we have to be selfish and rude and mean and a taker ourselves and all of that. Nope, nope, not even close. It just means we need to protect ourselves and learn who is a good person to give to and who isn't. We already have a pretty good dose of who's not, more than likely, right? So if you're tired of dealing with takers and manipulators and exploiters, then you need to learn what's going on so you don't have to anymore because they will keep showing up. They will just keep showing up over and over and over again until you realize and discover how to change this pattern, how to rebel against this pattern. That's exactly what I'm talking about. And that's exactly what I did. And it has been one heck of a fun ride. I mean, granted, it's hard. If you're faint of heart, then I don't know. I guess you're just going to be stuck with your status quo, and your kids are going to keep suffering for that. But if you have any ounce of gumption whatsoever, then it's time to rebel. It just is. We got to stand strong and say, I am not putting up with this bullshit coming from these people. And it does not have to be your spouse. It's just that's a very easy one for me to talk about because I went through that. And so are the moms that I'm thinking of right now, the ones I've had conversations with, and I'm watching and hearing their kids being manipulated and pulled back and forth. And they're just pieces on the game board instead of people. My own attorney, my own attorney, I had to educate because he insisted that no, well, your dad or your ex, he really loves his kids. And I said, no, he doesn't. And then I list behaviors. It's like, no, you can say words. You can say words all you want. And words do mean something, but behavior screams the truth. And that is what I was talking about. No, he does not love them. He has a delusion of loving them, but it's not real. That is not how you treat your kids if you actually love them. And that's what I'm watching in these other situations too. And it's sometimes I have to walk away when I'm listening because I'm like, oh dear, I'm getting a little too worked up. Ah, yeah, maybe this is really hitting home. I hope it is because it's time to rebel. You can do something about this. You have power now. I had no idea I had any power. It took until I was freaking 50 years old and I was marine crawling away, metaphorically, from my marriage because I just couldn't take it anymore. I knew something was so ferociously wrong, and it was either I leave the marriage or I leave the planet. Are you going to wait until you're in that situation? Or are you going to like grow some antlers and stand up not only for you, but for your kids in a big way? Not just in court, in a big way, in a life changing way to build a new pattern to then live out in front of your kids. And that way, there might be a hope that when they have kids of their own, they can see that contrast and they can start building an awareness of their own patterns and be able to rebel against that as well before it's too late, before they're getting into a bad relationship and have kids in that bad relationship. Wouldn't it be great if we could help our kids avoid all of this in the first place? But how are we going to do that if we just keep recycling what's been going on and on and on for all these generations? I mean, I think the answer is pretty clear. The real question is then, how badly do you want freedom for yourself and for your kids? How badly do you really want freedom? It's going to take some gonads, some antlers. But if you want that freedom for real, you can't just, oh, I sure hope this changes. I sure hope and pray that something happens that he'll finally come around and he'll be nice and for real and all that. Okay, if you really think that, then you're part of the delusion. That's I'm just going to be blunt. You have been so sucked into the delusion if you think that that's what's going to happen, because it's not. You are the one that's going to have to do something, and maybe even something pretty drastic. Let me put in a note here. I'm not saying by drastic something violent, okay? Let's just make this very clear. That's not at all what I am suggesting. But the contrast that I am living now and what I had been living in the past, that's pretty drastic. It's amazing. And this side is way better. Way better. How much do you want freedom? How much do you want out of this kind of situation where you just keep getting sucked in? And again, it doesn't have to just be with a spouse. It can be a family member, a different family member, someone that you grew up with. They could be wreaking that kind of havoc in your lives. It could be a boss. Maybe it's time you just find something else. However, just note that all of these different places you go, like if you want to make a change, you want to get out of that marriage or relationship or house or job or city, guess who goes with you? Your pattern. You go with you. So not much is really going to change unless you rebel and then make the change. or rebel while you're making the change. That's what I did. I rebelled and then I started making all these changes and went, "Ooh, wow. This is way different." I had no idea. Really, I had no idea I had this kind of power and that I could have so much better of a life. I really didn't know. And I was 50 when I finally started to discover this stuff. It took a while. Let me tell you, it took a long time. That's why I wrote this ebook, because I'm condensing a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about and how I got to where I am today, condensed it down so you don't have to take 10 years to figure this out. I've already done that kind of time. I'm giving you the best information that I took from all of this trial and error stuff. So check it out. Again, the ebook name is from not from Hot Bitch Mom, from almost ending it all to fun Hot Bitch Mom. Check it out below in the link. Please give me your feedback. Did you find yourself in what I was talking about? Do you have a situation right now where your kids are at jeopardy and they're in shackles because of what your fawn response has produced? Are you ready? Are you ready to break free? Are you ready to rebel? I hope so. Please comment below. And then also, again, please like, share, and subscribe. I would really appreciate that. And we'll keep this conversation going. So I'll see you next time and have a fabulous day.